we'd always said we'd come back to Exmoor, so we came. And then I was lucky enough to find this organisation, and they've allowed me to come and look at their bits and pieces ever since. So that's me, really.
Very good.
Okay. I think if you're going to work with racehorses, you must understand racing. We take in students now and teach them, and I say to them, when we were at Down's house, I would take some of the grooms and stand them under the open ditch at Newbury and say, you see what this horse is going to have to do. It's no good just patting it and saying, there, darling. This horse is going to have to do that. And we have some very good slow motion work, which Johnny Franklin has had done for me, of national hunt horses taking off, landing. And until you actually see 3/4 to a ton of animal land on one foot and past and collapse to the ground, till the ergot touches the ground, and then the actual recoil of those tendons propel the animal forward, people who are working with horses really don't actually understand, would you agree, how they have got to be built. So all the various types of gadgets out there have their own specific use, but I'm most interested in the Seawalker because you build muscles by creating a resistance. And the Seawalker produces an even resistance, and obviously you can vary the depth, so that again is extremely useful. But in today's training, due really to lack of staff and lack of time, there is unfortunately not the time, apparently, to do the preparation which is required. And looking back over diaries that go back a long time, we're certainly seeing injuries that really I don't think happened before, even though we have a better diagnostic problem apparatus these days. And one of the major problems we're seeing today is the base of the neck, where the neck joins on to the front of the chest. It's a very poor joint. The musculature is built by the horse's head nod. That's why the feral horses are so strong, and many of you will have heard of Monty Roberts, and he and I talk quite a lot together, and he says he can do X, Y, and Z with horses, and he can. But the horses he's doing X, Y, and Z with are feral horses that have come straight in off the plains. When we go back to the classical way of building horses, and they go to, let us say, the Portuguese state school or Vienna, the Viennese horses, as you all know, have lived on the Alps for 4 years. Now those horses are built, and in the early days they walked from the Iberian Peninsula to Vienna. It's quite a long way. So when they got there, what is now being called this famous thing, core stability, was actually there. Those of us who are dealing with them today, I think, have the misfortune to have not only, and I'm rude about breeders here, very poor quality breeding sometimes. I've got a mare, let's put her to the nearest stallion. Appalling nutrition in lots of bits of England, and very poor preparation, and that's what traders like yourself have to pick up and deal with. So I'll shut up now and go and ask it first.
No, you can't.
You have to remember again that muscles are made up of differing types of fibres. The flat horse is selectively and predominantly bred to have what we call fast twitch fibres, which give it a burst of speed over a particular distance. While all animals have a mix, or muscles have a mix of fast and slow twitch, you can select to a degree, genetically, the type of muscle you want. If you take a horse from, let us go back to racing, and take a horse that has been running over 5 furlongs, it's going to take a very, very long time to recruit the slow twitch muscles which it will require for the stamina to become an endurance horse. And in that case, you would utilize varying depths to recruit the type of muscle that you wanted. The endurance horse has to produce stamina, which is required to do the long distances, and they predominantly have Arabian blood in them, the majority of them, and the Arabian is nearly purely a slow twitch fibre. And so it responds remarkably well to a lot of resistance. And you're then building the musculature, but not just the musculature. The interesting thing about building muscles is you must allow the profusion of what is called the blood supply, the capillary bed, to work through those muscles. And if you overbuild muscles and ask them to do too much too quickly, all the research from Russia shows that the muscles self-destruct. And this is where, if we're talking about rehabilitation, you have to be so very careful. People think it can be done overnight. It can't. You've got to read your horse. So, I mean, as you know, I've said, and I crack on about it, bang on about it, that to me it's bringing the benefits of the beach and the sea, or the beach and the ocean, to your yard.
I think I could safely say, I'm sure Kerry would support this. In how many years, Kerry, in Australia were we training? Whatever.
97.
Yeah, we didn't have one attendant.
No.
Not one. And I can put my hand on heart and say that in those years there, and we walked in the sea every day. Everything walked every day. Whether or not, as Mary was saying, that is what it is, I can only tell you what we experienced.
Well, look at the horses that have been trained on the beach. Let's take Red Brom. Red Brom's in the sea day in, day out. We've sent an enormous number of horses from varying trainers, and I've said to them, get this to the beach somewhere. Robert, yes, as I say, we've put an enormous number of horses back by putting them in the sea.
We ended up having 3 stables, and originally it was the beach. Ended up being everything back at the beach. In the end, I think that was fair to say, Kerry, ended up back at the same spot. So what we started with went elsewhere and ended up back there.
And what is so nice is to have the experience from the other side of the world, from 2 totally different things, if you like, utilising the ocean and what's happened there. I don't expect everybody in the room is too young to remember a trainer called Butcher Hill from the West Country. Have you ever heard of Butcher Hill? Butcher Hill used to buy really bad horses out of cellars. They'd always got things wrong with their legs. And he took them down to the North Devon coast, where they lived in a series of old cow bars, and even in his so-called sitting room, if they weren't enough. And they went down to the beach every single day, and they worked in the tidal river of the Torridge. And when you saw that he'd gone to somewhere like Salisbury, you knew it was worth putting money on the horse because he could always win. I think one of your big problems, and this is what this fund is addressing, is the filtration of water.
Right.
That, to me, is the major problem, and probably the major expense.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
You know, that seems to be the difficulty.
We've got it sorted, but it didn't happen. I mean, we
It didn't
learned,
happen overnight.
No, it's a lot
And if you think of the tide, it's in, it's out, it's in, it's out, so you're always in unpolluted water. And you have to remember the skin is porous. So if there's anything there which is in any way toxic or irritant, you can irritate the skin and you're in real troubles. Well, that's the pressure of the prod on the sand or on the ground.
Yeah.
Will help the Venus return. I mean, again, I'm sure that everybody knows this, and at risk of repeating myself, as the horse developed in the evolutionary pattern, the cannon bone became longer. That's one of the lengths of limb, and obviously the circulatory supply elongated as the bone lengthened. But unfortunately, there are not enough veins in the veins of the not enough valves in the veins of the distal limb to assist the blood upward back toward the body mass. And the return of the venous blood from the foot and in the limb itself is nearly entirely dependent on the action of the frog. The frog is the most superb pump. When you're in the Seawalker, if there is too much excess fluid there, because of osmosis, the drawing out of the excess fluid from a weaker solution to a stronger, you will clear excess filling, and that will enable the frog to do its job rather more efficiently in the pumping of the venous blood back up the limb until you get to the musculature of the forearm and the second thigh or gasking.
Ours go on the wall Seawalker after every piece of fast work as a matter of course, and they would go on there for the next day as well as a matter of course. And then we have some that spend more time on there. They would go on every day no matter what they were doing. They would go on there. Anything, we're lucky enough to have any laryngitis, but we do have the odd old horse whose joints aren't perfect, and he would spend more time on there. We're restricted to 4 horses at a time, which is till we can get an 8-horse one. And